They say blood is thicker than water, but nobody ever mentions that blood can also drown you if you let it. Standing on the rooftop terrace of the Sears Tower in downtown Chicago, I watched the city lights twinkle below like scattered diamonds against black velvet. My phone vibrated in my hand, David's name flashing across the screen. My father. I already knew what this call would be about before I answered it. "Nadia, sweetheart, we have a situation with Brooklyn." His voice carried that familiar tone of urgency mixed with expectation. "She needs help with some unexpected expenses for her upcoming New York trip. You know how important these fashion events are for her career." I closed my eyes, feeling the familiar weight settle on my shoulders. 12 years. For 12 years, I had been the family's personal ATM, the reliable source of funds whenever Brooklyn needed something, which was always. My younger sister, the aspiring influencer, the golden child who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. "How much this time?" I asked, my voice flat. "Just $15,000. It's for the entire Fashion Week package. Hotels, outfits, networking events. This could be her big break, Nadia. 15,000. Just. As if that amount was pocket change. As if I hadn't worked 70-hour weeks for years to build my architectural firm from nothing. As if the money materialized out of thin air, simply because I had achieved some measure of success. I thought back to all the emergencies over the years. Brooklyn's crashed BMW that she had been driving too fast. The medical bills that turned out to be for cosmetic procedures. The rent for her luxury apartment in River North that cost more than most people's mortgages. Each time I had quietly transferred the money, telling myself it was what family did for each other. But what had they done for me? When I was starting my business, sleeping on a friend's couch and eating ramen noodles every night, where was this family support? When I needed just $2,000 to keep my first office space, they had told me I needed to learn to stand on my own 2 feet. The irony wasn't lost on me. My parents had stretched themselves thin to afford this place, always trying to keep up appearances. "I have wonderful news," I announced over Linda's pot roast, unable to contain my excitement any longer. "We just secured major funding for the sustainable housing project. 40,000 from Evergreen Capital." Brooklyn barely looked up from her phone. "That's nice," she said in a tone that suggested it was anything but. "Speaking of money, did Dad talk to you about New York? I really need those funds by next week. The early bird pricing ends soon, and I've already told my followers I'll be there." I set down my fork carefully. "Brooklyn, I can't keep funding your lifestyle. This investment money is earmarked for the project. I have legal obligations to my investors." She finally looked at me, her perfectly contoured face twisting into an expression of disbelief. "Are you serious right now? You just said you got $40,000 and you can't spare 15 for your own sister? God, Nadia, you're so selfish. You have your fancy downtown office, your company, your success, and I'm struggling to make it. This is my career we're talking about." Linda jumped in immediately. "Nadia, your sister is right. Family helps family. You've been blessed with success. Shouldn't you share that blessing?" David nodded in agreement. "We're not asking for much, considering how well you're doing. Brooklyn deserves her chance to shine too." I looked around the table at their expectant faces, feeling something inside me start to crack. 12 years of this. 12 years of being told my success was meant to be shared while their failures were mine to fix. I excused myself from the table, claiming I needed to take an urgent call. Standing in their backyard, I pulled out my phone and checked my business account. The $40,000 was there, waiting to be deployed for the project. But something made me check the transaction history, a nagging feeling in my gut. My blood turned to ice. The $40,000 was gone. Transferred out, just 3 hours ago. "You stole from me," I said, my voice deadly quiet. "Don't be dramatic, Nadia. We borrowed it. You'll make it back in no time with your business. Brooklyn's wedding only happens once. You stole $40,000 that belongs to my investors. Do you understand what you've done? I could lose my license. I could be sued. My entire career could be destroyed." "You're overreacting, as usual." "It's family money. What's yours is ours." I hung up on him and called Linda. "Mom, he took money that wasn't mine to give. This is theft. Criminal theft." "Oh, Nadia, always so dramatic. Your father was just trying to help your sister. She's been planning this wedding for months, and she deserves her special day. Don't you want your sister to be happy? Why must you always make everything about money?" The gaslighting was so smooth, so practiced. I almost questioned my own sanity for a moment. Then Brooklyn called. "Nadia, what's your problem? Dad said you're freaking out about the money. It's not like you can't afford it. You literally have an entire company. I only get one wedding, and you're trying to ruin it because you're jealous that I'm getting married first. You stole $40,000 from my company, Brooklyn. That's a felony." She laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh, please. Like you'd actually report your own family. Besides, I'd just tell everyone how you've been financially abusing us for years, holding money over our heads, making us beg for every little thing. See how that plays for your precious reputation?" That was the moment. The exact moment when 12 years of manipulation, guilt, and exploitation crystallized into perfect clarity. They didn't see me as family. I was just a resource to be extracted from. A well that would never run dry. "You'll regret this," I said quietly. "What are you going to do, Nadia? Sue us? Go ahead. I'm sure your clients would love to know you come from a trashy family. As a major shareholder, you're within your rights to request a full audit of all accounts connected to yours." "I want more than an audit," I said. "I want every account associated with my family flagged for suspicious activity. If they've been using my financial information for fraudulent purposes, I want to know about it." Sarah nodded slowly. "We can do that. Fair warning. If we find evidence of fraud, we're legally obligated to freeze the accounts and report it to the authorities." "I understand." The next afternoon, my phone exploded with calls and texts. David's voice was panicked when I finally answered. "What did you do?" "All our accounts are frozen. The credit cards won't work. They're saying there's suspicious activity." Linda called next, sobbing. "Nadia, they're reviewing our mortgage. They say there are discrepancies in our reported income. We could lose the house." Brooklyn's call was pure rage. "The venue called. The payment was reversed due to fraud alerts. They canceled my wedding. My wedding, Nadia. You've ruined everything. I haven't done anything, I said calmly. The bank is simply doing their due diligence. If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to worry about. But they did have something to hide. Sarah called me 2 days later with the full report. Your family has been using your social security number and financial information to secure loans and credit cards for the past 5 years, she said. The total debt in your name that you weren't aware of is close to $200,000. They've been making minimum payments using the money you've been giving them, essentially having you pay for debt you didn't even know existed. I closed my eyes, feeling sick. What are my options? You can file a police report for identity theft. You can also pursue civil action. Or, you can work with us to separate your finances completely and put them on a payment plan for the debt. Either way, their current accounts will remain frozen until this is resolved. I thought about it for exactly 30 seconds. File the report. The fallout was swift and brutal.
The money you were taking from me to pay the minimums?
We're your parents, David said, as if that explained everything, excused everything. No, I said, standing up. Parents protect their children. They don't steal from them. They don't exploit their success. They don't commit felonies using their daughter's information. You're not my parents. You're criminals who happen to share my DNA. Brooklyn tried to come see me next, but I refused. She sent me a long email about how I had destroyed her life, her wedding, her future. How her fiancé had left her when he found out about the financial crimes. How she was now working at a department store because her influencer career was over without the lifestyle to back it up. I didn't reply. 6 months passed. The legal proceedings were ongoing, but I had separated myself entirely from the financial chaos. The $40,000 was recovered through insurance, and my investors, while initially concerned, were impressed by how decisively I had handled the situation. My business thrived without the constant drain of my family's demands. The sustainable housing project broke ground, and we received national recognition for our innovative design. I was featured in Architectural Digest, and they wanted to know the secret to my success. Boundaries, I told the interviewer. Knowing your worth and not letting anyone, not even family, tell you otherwise. David and Linda lost the house in Naperville. Last I heard, they were living in a small apartment in Cicero, both working retail jobs to make ends meet. The criminal charges were pending, but their lawyers were working on a plea deal that would probably include probation and restitution. Brooklyn sent me a wedding invitation 8 months later, a simple card, clearly homemade, for a ceremony at a community church in Des Plaines. The reception would be in the church basement. No grand ballroom, no designer dress, no photographer. Just a simple wedding that she could actually afford. I sent a card with a check for $500. Not as a sister, not as family, but as a human being wishing another human being well. It was more than they deserved, but less than they expected. I understand now. David tried to reconnect when he heard about my company's IPO. He sent a long letter about forgiveness and family and second chances. I had my lawyer send a cease and desist letter in response. Some bridges, once burned, should stay ash. Linda sent birthday cards for a while, each one with a subtle hint about their struggles, their hardships. I had my assistant return them unopened. The manipulation was so ingrained in her, she probably didn't even realize she was doing it. Standing in my new office, now occupying the entire top floor of a building I owned, I looked out at Chicago spreading beneath me. The city I had helped build, the life I had created, the success I had earned. All of it truly mine now, not shadowed by the constant drain of family exploitation. My phone rang. Sarah Mitchell, who had become a friend and mentor through everything. "How are you doing, Nadia?" Really doing? I thought about it. Really considered the question. "Free," I said finally. "For the first time in my adult life, I'm free." "Good. You deserve to be. By the way, I have someone I want you to meet. Another entrepreneur. Someone who understands the value of boundaries and building something real." I smiled. "Sounds interesting." After I hung up, I walked to my desk and picked up a photo I kept there. Not of my biological family, but of my chosen family. The friends who had supported me when I had nothing. The mentor who had believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. The team who had helped build my company. Real family. The kind you choose. The kind that builds you up instead of tearing you down. Brooklyn's wedding happened on a rainy Saturday in October. I didn't attend, but I heard about it from a mutual acquaintance. Simple, small, genuine. She had paid for it herself with money she had earned from her consulting business. Her husband was a teacher, steady and supportive. They were living within their means, building something real together. Perhaps that was the best outcome I could have hoped for. Not revenge. Respect isn't something you beg for. Family isn't defined by blood, but by mutual support, genuine care, and reciprocal respect. Everything else is just genetics. The investment firm that had provided the $40,000 reached out again, impressed by how I had handled the crisis. They wanted to invest more, much more. $2 million for a new project. A revolutionary approach to affordable housing that could change how cities thought about urban development. "We're not just investing in your ideas," the partner told me. "We're investing in you." Someone who protects their business, who sets boundaries, who doesn't let personal matters destroy professional obligations. That's rare. I signed the deal, knowing that this time, the money was safe. My accounts were locked down with biometric security. My identity was monitored by 3 different services. My family had no access, no passwords, no emergency codes, no way to ever touch my success again. The night after signing, I stood on my terrace again, looking out at Chicago. The city sprawled before me, full of lights and life and possibility. Somewhere out there, in a modest apartment, my parents were probably getting ready for bed after their retail shifts. Somewhere else, Brooklyn was probably working on her small business, learning what it really took to build something from nothing. And here I stood, no longer the family ATM, no longer the sacrificial lamb, no longer the one who gave and gave until there was nothing left. I was Nadia the architect, the CEO, the woman who had built an empire not in spite of her family's betrayal, but because of it. Their theft had freed me from the chains of obligation I had wrapped around myself. The $40,000 had been a small price to pay for that freedom. They thought they were stealing my money, but really, they had given me something priceless. The ability to finally say no. To finally choose myself. To finally understand that blood doesn't entitle anyone to destroy you. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. A photo from a charity gala she was attending.
You should have come.
She wrote. There are some people here not stolen, not manipulated, not guilt-tripped into existence, but earned through hard work, determination, and the courage to stand on your own 2 feet. The wine tasted like victory, sharp and sweet, and entirely mine. Looking back now, 2 years after that phone call on the rooftop, I could see the pattern so clearly. Every crisis had been manufactured, every emergency carefully timed to when I had just achieved something significant. They had been monitoring my success, waiting for the right moments to strike, to extract maximum value from their investment in raising me. That's what I had been to them, an investment. Not a daughter, not a sister, but a long-term financial plan that had finally matured. They had put in the minimum required effort for 18 years, and then expected dividends for life. But investments can be liquidated, assets can be protected, and sometimes the best financial decision you can make is to cut your losses and walk away. The Sustainable Housing Project was completed last month. 50 units of affordable, eco-friendly housing in a neighborhood that desperately needed it. At the ribbon cutting, a reporter asked me what inspired the project. The belief that everyone deserves a stable foundation, I said. A place where they can build their lives without fear of it being taken away. She thought I was talking about the housing crisis. I was. But I was also talking about so much more. About the stable foundation I had never had with my family. The one I had to build for myself. About the life that had been repeatedly destabilized by their demands and manipulations. About the home I had created in my own success. One that no one could ever take away from me again. Brooklyn reached out last week. Her business was growing, and she wanted to know if I would consider being an investor. She had prepared a professional pitch deck, market analysis, financial projections. It was impressive, honestly. I declined, but I connected her with other investors I knew. Not because I forgave her, but because I could appreciate the effort. But here's what I learned, what those 40,000 stolen dollars taught me. The price of staying in those toxic relationships is far higher than the cost of leaving them. Every dollar I had given them over the years wasn't just money lost. It was potential stolen, opportunities missed, dreams deferred, because I was too busy filling their bottomless pit of need. Now, my money goes where it makes a difference. Scholarships for architecture students from low-income families. Funding for women starting their own firms. Investment in sustainable development that helps entire communities. Real impact, not enabling dysfunction. The irony is that by cutting them off, I probably helped my family more than all the money I had ever given them. They learned to work, to budget, to live within their means, to appreciate what they earned. These were lessons that $200,000 of handouts had never taught them. Sometimes, the kindest thing you can do is say no. Sometimes, the most loving act is to stop enabling. Sometimes, the only way people learn to swim is when you stop being their life raft. Standing in my office today, looking at the plans for our next project, a net-zero energy skyscraper that would redefine sustainable architecture, I felt nothing but gratitude. Grateful for the success, yes, but more grateful for the hard lessons that it shaped me. That $40,000 hadn't been stolen. It had been tuition. Tuition for the most valuable education I ever received. The knowledge that I was worth more than what I could provide to others. That my value wasn't determined by my usefulness to my family, and that choosing yourself isn't selfish when the alternative is drowning. My name is Nadia Chen, and I am no longer anyone's ATM. I am an architect, a CEO, a philanthropist, a friend, a mentor, and maybe someday, when I'm ready, I'll be family again. But it will be family I choose, family that's earned, family that sees me as a person, not a piggy bank. I am exactly who I chose to be, and that choice, that absolute refusal to compromise my integrity for anyone or anything, is my greatest accomplishment. The family that raised me is in prison or poverty, brought down by their own crimes and their assumption that I would enable them. The family I've built, my colleagues and the citizens I protect, trust me absolutely because I've proven that my integrity has no price. Richard thought he was saving his legacy by stealing that money. He was right, in a way. He did save his legacy, just not how he intended. His legacy is me, the daughter who refused to be corrupted, who chose justice over blood, who proved that no one is above the law. I don't visit them in prison. I don't send money to Eleanor. I don't respond to letters or calls or messages passed through relatives. Not because I'm cruel, but because there's nothing to say. They are criminals who happened to share my DNA, and I am the agent who held them accountable. That's the entire relationship, stripped of sentiment and manipulation and false obligation. My story isn't one of revenge or hatred. It's one of clarity, of seeing people for who they truly are and responding accordingly. My family showed me who they were through every dismissive comment, every sexist assumption, every moment they valued me only for what I could provide. When they committed federal crimes and expected me to enable them, they simply confirmed what I'd always known. They were never my family in any way that mattered. Standing on that rooftop, promoted and respected and free, I felt no satisfaction in their downfall, but no regret either. They'd authored their own destruction, through choices they'd made freely and repeatedly, despite clear warnings. I'd simply refused to be destroyed alongside them. In their minds, that made me a traitor. In mine, it made me exactly who I'd always been, just finally free to show it. The city lights stretched to the horizon. Millions of people